Hey everyone, this is Ben back with you in the model shop. This episode is actually just kind of a quick update on what's going on and like a little show and tell. So my wife and I are actually trying to sell our house right now so we can get a new model shop to build stuff in. And so as a result, if anyone's ever sold a house or bought a house before, you know that you kind of got to stage your house for showings, and obviously having a build going on in the middle of that isn't very conducive to showing a house. So that's probably the reason I haven't started another build yet. But I thought today that I would do a little show and tell and show off some of my work that I've done in the past. I've got a handful of boats here that are really cool that I wanted to share and just talk about why I built them, why I think they're neat, and to see your guys' comments about fun builds that you've done and what you think. And you'll obviously see a different skill level. Most of these models are, they're 5+ years old, if not older at this point. And also I have some Fine Scale Modeler magazine pictures to show you. I think I have 5 models that I've built over the years that I've submitted to the reader gallery, and they were kind enough to put those pictures in, so I figured I'd show you those and show you the models. I still have all of them, pretty sure. And so anyway, that's kind of the update of what's going on. Let's go ahead and start off by looking at some of these boats right here, and then we'll move on to the magazine stuff. Alright, first off we have 2 submarines. This is a Los Angeles class attack sub and an Ohio class missile boat. These are in 1/350th scale, and I believe that they are dragging kits. They came in the same box together, and I am mesmerized by United States, well, actually all submarines, especially the modern ones. I think the shapes are really cool, and I was blown away by, I can barely get these to fit in the frame. These boats are to scale, and it's amazing to me how much larger the boomer is to the attack sub. So this model is it says Los Angeles on here. Obviously I didn't finish painting that, but let's try a little zoom here. I got a new camera, so I'm checking it out. Obviously you can see this is the USS Chicago, and those of you who are familiar with the Chicago will know that there was a big bull, like the Chicago Bulls bull decal. It was supposed to go on the front here, but this is a very difficult shape to get a decal on, and back then when I made this boat I didn't know how to do that. What I was doing back then was trying to get some textures and finishes that weren't just black and red, and so like you can see, like that panel's painted a different color, and I did a couple of little spots here and there where I touched up using some colors different than black. And then I went ahead and did a dot filter, which if you aren't familiar is basically where you take your oil paints and you put like dots of red, green, and yellow and gray and whatever color you want, and you let them sit for a minute, and then you thin them out and wash them down the side of the subject that you're painting, and it kind of creates an uneven finish. It adds an interesting effect. This is the Maryland. This missile boat, you had the option to pose some of these hatches open with the missiles ready to launch. Sorry, I opted for the cleaner closed look. Yeah, this thing is just really cool. I'm just blown away by the shapes and how big they are, and that we have this available in the world. I guess that this is a nuclear submarine attack sub, and it's huge. So for fun, right next to it for scale, because I'm always blown away by scale, this is my 1/350th scale Fletcher, USS Fletcher DD destroyer from World War II, and I believe that this may also be a dragging kit. I built this a long time ago, but we'll just kind of line them up here. You can see they are to scale, and that boomer is way, way, way bigger. And if we go ahead and drag in the attack sub and put it up next to it, you can see that they're comparable in size. The attack sub's a lot smaller, but it just blows my mind how much larger United States Navy submarines are today versus what we were working with in World War II. And then adding to my little collection, let's see if I can bring this in the shot without messing up. I thought it would be cool to build an Alpha attack sub. This obviously is a Russian attack boat. It's black, it's got a bunch of torpedo tubes. This was a challenge because I had to paint this white spot on the front, and this is not a decal. This is a white stripe that I painted around the side of the boat and had to get it to go straight across the bow. It was fun, and I think these things are really cool the way that they're shaped on the conning tower. I think that's right, or the sail, maybe call it the sail. See, I'm not a Navy guy, but yeah, I like to display these all three right next to each other. And I do need to build a Russian missile boat. There's a whole bunch more I need to build, but those are cool. Then I also have a German World War II U-boat. This is the can't even see it here, 255 Type 7C U-boat. This is the one I believe that's in, you can go see this in Chicago at the Museum of Science and Industry. This kit, I don't remember the manufacturer. This is 1/350th scale. It's the same scale as this Los Angeles class attack boat behind it. So you can see that the new ones are significantly bigger. This was a fun kit to build. The only real criticism of it is you can kind of see down here in the bottom, that decal, see where it says U255? It's really hard to see. For some reason it didn't, the white and silver didn't work out really well, but I did run some rigging on this thing. This is one of the first ever really little, we'll zoom in here, models that I ever built, and did a little weathering on and tried to keep everything to scale. Just a fun out of the box build that I thought was really neat. So, and I like showing this off next to obviously the bigger boats. And then, you know, for comparison, you can see we have our USS Fletcher behind it here, and they're to scale to one another. I mean, these would have been worthy opponents of each other during the First Great War. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Fletcher here. Alright, here's the Fletcher. So I built this because a long time ago I was looking at some Fine Scale Modeler magazine reader gallery pictures, and I noticed that there were some really cool Navy ships that folks had built that were like all gray and dark and just looked complicated and neat, and I really was enamored by them. So one day I decided I was going to go ahead and build one. So I believe this is a Dragon kit. It came with photo etch detail, and it went together pretty easily. It was a lot of fun back then. I lost the number decal up front here, so I had to try and paint that by hand. You can see we're missing a little, this thing's old and it's seen some wear and tear. It's missing a little mast up in the bow. You'll also see the rigging is stretched styrene and it's gray, and it's just kind of haphazard. I just kind of threw it up there and did it. This was one of my very first attempts at stretching sprues to get that effect, and I didn't know what I could accomplish with it. I also went ahead and included figures. That figure right there on the top is a Dragon figure that was included with the kit. We've got another one right down here in the bow. I've got him kind of just leaning over. And that gentleman right there came with the kit. They were fantastic because you can see they're 3D and they look good. So then I moved on to the Tamiya flat people, I call them, to try and occupy the rest of the ship somewhere, just to have a few more figures. I wish Dragon made their 3D figures available. We're missing a screw over here from all the years of abuse and running around. It gets dusty. Yeah, it's time for me to build a replacement. And I have a replacement in the closet. I've got a Tamiya kit, same scale, and I've got the photo etch metal available to make one. I just haven't really felt like it. I kind of want to do a larger scale ship next, because these are really small, and they don't take up a lot of room, but they take up a lot of patience, I guess is the right thing to say. Alright, let's move on to some of the stuff that has appeared in Fine Scale Modeler magazine. Alright, so in 2008 I had a bunch of firsts. First of all, my first ever picture that I submitted to Fine Scale Modeler magazine ended up in the magazine, and I'll go ahead and I'll show you real quickly. I took a scan of the image. It's obviously not the highest quality, but you get the idea. I'll read what the description says. I also built my first ever diorama scene. I also built my first ever tank, and my only tank to date, all in one. And this is a Tiger 1 in gray, and I can't remember who the figures are. I scratch built the fence. The rocks are from out in the yard, and I was trying to mess with the grass, and yeah, just this whole thing was a real experiment for me. I'd never done this before. So the article, the little comment, they give you a little blurb in the magazine. It says, even though Benjamin has been building models for years, this is not only his first diorama, but his first Tiger tank as well. He used Tamiya's 1/48 scale Tiger 1 kit and Panzer Grenadier set. He says he positioned the tank driving over a fence because, quote, tanks look cooler when smashing something. I don't remember saying that, but I do I do think that they do look cooler when they're smashing something. So anyway, this is my first ever diorama, and we'll zoom in a little bit here. And it was fun. It was neat. It was experiment, and I enjoyed building the kit. And as you can see right here, I got some of the tank tracks. I had to paint the camouflage on the back of the German uniforms there. I had to pick out a style that I thought was cool, and yeah, this was it. It was neat. All right, let's check out the next one. All right, my next piece came along in 2010. So this was when I was in a huge BF109 building splurge, and I went ahead and built this Tamiya BF109 E4/7 trop, however you want to pronounce it. Really like this kit because it comes with leading edge slats and flaps that you can pose up or down. I don't know if you'll be able to see this here. We'll try. I did go ahead and trick out the flight deck with a whole bunch of aftermarket products to give it a bunch of detail on the inside. Kind of glance in there and see everything that's going on. You spend a lot of time monkeying around with all this stuff, and then you can't see the detail when you're done, unfortunately, a lot of times. This is my first, I think second custom build where I chopped up the kit and I put in an aftermarket resin engine. I'd never done this before. It was my very first time. And I did this with a Focke-Wulf 190 also. That one, it made in the magazine as well. Later on I'll show you a picture of that. Had my airbrushing skills kind of dialed in at the time. Decals were outstanding. I mean, these are decals. They set down really nice. Yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed this build, and this one I didn't do stretch sprue. I think this is actually wire that I just made work the way it was supposed to. So anyway, submitted it to the magazine. It turned out nice. The picture worked out well. Let's see here. The little blurb in Fine Scale Modeler says, for his first super detailing project, Ben chose the Dash 4 model from Tamiya's 148 scale BF109E4 Trupp and dressed it up with Edward photo etched metal and a resin cockpit from Quick Boost. He hopes to make his plane the centerpiece in a Battle of Britain diorama. Obviously, I had some hopes and dreams there that never played out because I didn't do that. This is as far as the kit ever got. But that's it. Turned out real nice. Alright, let's see the next one. Alright, next up we have the mighty F4U Corsair. This is one of my all-time favorite models and airplanes to this day. I call this the F-14 of World War II because it was just huge, it was loud, it was fast, it was super impressive. So this is the image that I submitted to FSM, and the description says, Ben converted Verlinden super detailed set for Hasegawa's 148 scale F4U Corsair. And quote, I really wanted its flaps down, he says. Also, I like the look of the 4-blade prop. I realized this plane wasn't flown in World War II by the Jolly Rogers, but I don't care. I purchased a decal set with those markings. Then it goes on to say, Benjamin cut up the kit to display the gun bay and cowling flaps and modified parts to accommodate the resin flaps. The paint job was a big deal on this one, he says. His first attempt at dot filtering with artist oils went badly. I had to start over on the wings a couple of times, but I eventually found a combination that worked, he says. So yeah, I actually remember that. So this was one of the early dot filtering deals as well. You could kind of see, especially back here in the tail, that I modulated the paint that I sprayed on. Like I went with a lighter blue to try and show some wear and tear, just so that it wasn't a boring color. Then I gave it a clear coat, and I did hit it with a dot filter. And it was rough. I think I completely screwed this wing up and ended up stripping it all off and starting all over again. I did super detail the flight deck. We'll see if you can see in there. There you go. From real steady, you can make out all that detail that we put inside. And I like that the Corsair has a big open canopy so that you could see inside there all that little work that I did. This is the one gun bay that's opened up. That was a little nerve-wracking because I had to cut this apart. I made my photo etch, which I wasn't very good at back then, and then I had to thin the wing to allow all that to fit inside. Let's see here. Apparently, yeah, I guess these are resin flaps I bought from somewhere. And then, you know, that's the bottom of the aircraft. I do like the Jolly Rogers. They're like my favorite squadron. But I also really like 4-bladed props. This one, for some reason, I did like a gloss black on the propeller. I don't know why. The fit's a little loose. It's a little dusty. But it turned out awesome. I really enjoyed this. And this is one of my more favorite kits. I'm really glad that I took the time to build it. It's still one of my favorite models today. Oh yeah, Japanese Zero time. Alright, so let's see. This one made it into FSM in 2013. Here's the scan picture that was submitted. And the little blurb says, Benjamin was going to paint Tamiya's 148 scale A6M Type 320 white. And I believe I remember that. Instead, he decided to try the salt weathering techniques he read about in FSM. He says, after everything dried, I chipped off the salt and was impressed. When you chip with silver or whatever on top of paint, it works, but not as well as this. And that's true. I actually really like this. So this is obviously a really worn Zero, and this is pretty, you know, over the top. We'll zoom in here a little bit, but the paint chipping technique worked out really well. So what you do is the entire model is painted silver or metal, whatever you want to put on there first. Then what you do is you speckle water onto the model and dumped salt on it. Basically everywhere you see silver, I had salt, and the salt sticks to the wet water, and let it dry and it'll adhere to the outside of the aircraft. And then you go ahead, sorry about that, and paint your top coat colors. So obviously, this is the black spinner with the green. I went ahead, these are not decals I painted on. I made masks for the stripes and the zeros. I'm sorry, the Japanese rising sun. And when you're done with that, you go ahead and chip off. You'll have little bumps where the salt's at. You just flick it off. It pops right off, and the bare metal underneath comes shining right on through. And that's how you end up with this salt. This chipped look. And I think it's good if we zoom in once again here, because let's get to focus. There you go. If you look carefully, you can see that this black is on top, and same with the green back there. It does not appear like I added the silver on top of the finished paint, which I think is really important in terms of making it look realistic. Flight deck, and this thing is the first time I ever used that Japanese interior green, because that's the color you use. They have really nice decals that you just adhere to the instrument panel, and I just went ahead and used those. It turned out nice. Do a little detail work on the radios. There you go. Get those switches in there. And then looks like I used the decal, included decal stripes for the seatbelts. Sorry. So we did that. Let's zoom out here. This is the bottom. Nothing too fancy going on here. But anyway, this kit was a lot of fun. I've always wanted to build a Zero. My buddy bought this for me, I believe, or I traded it to him for a different kit. I can't remember how that exchange worked out. And I was like, I'm going to build it. I love the way these planes look, but they're just so simple. The paint jobs are either white or green, and I was really into doing camouflage at the time. And as you can see, I learned how to vary the tone of the paint to help give it a worn look. This was a big accomplishment for me back then, and yeah. Oh, you can see some wear and tear here. This is obviously was snapped off, and I was only able to glue it right back on the top. And again, I'm using wire. This is before Easy Line and before I knew how to stretch sprues really well. So yeah, that's my Zero. I display it next to my Corsair. Obviously the Corsair I think is better, but yeah. Alright, moving along. Alright, last one. So this is the mighty Focke-Wulf 190D, I think, the long nose. This one made it into Fine Scale Model Magazine in 2014. It took up like a third of the page. I'll go ahead and throw that picture up here. Again, a grainy photo, but the scanner on my computer, I need to replace the scanner. But anyway, so this kit was great. So this is a Tamiya kit, and one of my ex-girlfriends for Christmas, it's in the description, bought me the Verlinden engine detail set. I was really pumped about that. I know, guys, right away that's like any girl who buys you model stuff's a keeper, but she was a dud. Anyway, moving along. So I went ahead and cut this plane up and put in all the detail stuff that I could. Tried to do the best I possibly could with the paint job. This all happened around the same time as that BF-109 you saw at the beginning. It's just that it didn't make it into Fine Scale Modeler for a few years after I'd submitted the photo. I'll read the description here real quick. So for Christmas, Ben's girlfriend gave him a Verlinden engine and detail set for his 1/48 scale Tamiya Focke-Wulf 190D. I was super pumped, he says. It was no big deal to cut up the Tamiya kit per the Verlinden instructions. According to my reference photos, I didn't need to add any lines or wires to the engine that weren't in the set. And that was true. That was something that was really cool. I had all these reference photos. I was trying to be super accurate. and basically everything that's in there is what I found in my reference photos. So for, you know, a kit that, I mean, that's nice for a kit. You don't have to add anything. It was all resin. The instructions were good. So you can see down in that gun bay there's a set of wires coming out of the side of the fuselage, and I've got them over here as well. Those were in my reference photos. I had to add those. Let's see here. One thing is rough about the 190. There we go. It's really hard to see the instrument panel once you're done doing all the work to it. Like every kit I've ever made, like you could see the detail when you're putting it together, and it looks really cool. And then when you put it all together, when you're done assembling it, it just ends up disappearing in there, unfortunately. So I did not opt to open up the radio compartment like some very gifted people do. Let's see here. This spinner, I did manage. Man, it's dusty. This thing is just glued on. It doesn't turn. I did a gloss black, and I was able to get the decal to lay on there pretty much perfectly. I was really happy about that. Let's take a look at the detail on the bottom here. So this model and the BF109 I entered in my one and only ever model competition. It was a local model contest. I happened to be home for it, and this one won first place for the aircraft models. Just a little local show, not a big deal. I was really stoked, and I asked the guy, well, how come this one won versus the BF109? And he said he thought they were both excellent. He's like, I can't do that. I can't make those decals look like they're painted on. These stripes are painted, but those are decals. That's just because Tamiya makes really great kits. And he said he liked this one better than the 109 just as a personal preference, so he just threw the ribbon on this one versus my 109. So anyway, that's my Focke-Wulf 190D with the engine cowl cut up and exposed so you can see the guns and everything. And yeah, this kit was a lot of fun. This was when I had progressed past just painting. Obviously I could apply decals and paint. I needed to cut something up for the first time and do something completely different, and it worked out really well. This was a good combination. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Alright, just one more. I realized I couldn't probably end the show without sharing this. I do have a P51 Mustang. P51D Mustang. This is the ultimate in Mustang markings in my opinion. This is big beautiful Dow, flown by Colonel John D. Landers. He holds the record, I believe, in World War II for most kills by an Allied pilot. And this is his bird. This thing is just a great looking model. This is a Tamiya 1/48 scale kit. I don't think I was able to get these markings out of the box. I think I had to order them as an aftermarket. Let's see if we could zoom in here. But everything turned out really nice. They went on sharp, no trouble. So the decals are a combination of the aftermarket and the kit supplied parts. Obviously this thing's got a little bit of dust on it and it's sat out for a while. Tamiya kits are great if you're going to build an airplane in 1/48 scale. I highly recommend picking up a Tamiya kit. They just are engineered really well. They go together really slick. Let's see. So I painted the wingtips. Let's zoom in here. That's not a decal. They provide you with one, but it's, I mean, this is a terrible angle. You can mask that off and paint it. The front checkerboard pattern is decals. It's 3 or 4 decals that go together, and you have to be careful and take your time to get them to match up right. And somewhere, so you can see the decal kind of ends by the landing gear there. It doesn't match up all the way. I imagine I did a little touching up with some paint, but I mean I really went out of my way to try and get that pattern to turn out as best as I possibly could. So yeah, I do have a P51 Mustang. If you guys have ever been to an air show and you get to see one of these things fly, they're just incredibly graceful, beautiful machines. I think the only thing on par with it, I'm not going to say second to it, but on par with it is the Spitfire. These two are those airplanes. This one and the Spitfire, they're in a class all their own. So yeah, that'll wrap it up. Alright everyone, thanks again for watching, and let me take a minute just to show off some of the models that I've made in the past and kind of explain again what's going on. Special thanks to the Fine Scale Modeler magazine people who've published some of my pictures in the past. This is, if you're not familiar with Fine Scale Modeler magazine, I do encourage everyone to go check them out. This is not a paid subscription. I'm sorry, they're not paying me to promote their magazine. This is something that I'm just doing on my own. I believe in the hobby, and I believe in the products, and I believe in the people that are behind all of this stuff, and I try and support it any way that I can. If I go to a new hobby shop somewhere in the country and it's clearly a mom and pop operation, they just about all are, I try and buy something from them somewhere just to try and support them. And so to support the hobby, I do subscribe annually to Fine Scale Modeler magazine. You can pick it up in most newsstands. If you want to submit a picture to Fine Scale Modeler, they have instructions on their website on how to do it. It's free to do so. You just have to take good pictures. Now I realize the scanned images that you saw don't look that great, and that's because I have kind of a crappy scanner that I need to update. But the pictures end up turning out looking really nice on the magazine. They're magazine pictures. This is somebody's photos here. They turn out nice. And they do buy the rights from you so that they can publish it. So depending on the size of the photo, if it's selected, you'll get 20 to 30 bucks for it. They send you a check in the mail. And everyone around the world gets to see your work, and I think that's pretty cool. At the time, this is years ago, but back then if I submitted a photo and they liked it, you'd hear from them about 6 months later, and it would end up in the magazine. And it's always a surprise. Every month I'd open up the magazine, flip through, go to the reader gallery and see if one of my pieces was in there, because that's encouraging. I think it's great that they do that. So anyway, if you don't know about them, check them out. The only comment I have is they're pretty strict about the format of the photos that you submit. Back then I was using a digital camera. It was the best thing that I had. You want to set up and get the lighting right and take a really nice high quality photo, the best you can do, and just look at the models that are submitted and see the different angles and profiles that they use to take the pictures and what the lighting look like, and just try and mimic that. I mean, that's all you can do really to increase your chances of getting one of your pieces to appear in this magazine. Anyway, they're great. That's my spiel. If I didn't mention it before, I bought a new camera and I'm kind of testing it out in this video as well. I look forward to seeing all of your comments below, and hopefully get this house sold soon and moved into another one, and a new shop set up with a little bit more space inside so I can press on to the next build. Alright, that's enough for now. Thank you all. You've been wonderful, and yeah, I'll talk to you later.